In the quiet folds of history, in the gentle mists of early China, a small, unassuming leaf would begin a story that would stretch across centuries. It is a story not of kings or battles, but of discovery, curiosity, and the soft, persistent whisper of nature. Tea, a simple word, yet one that holds within it a world of human thought, ritual, and shared experience. And like all origins, the beginnings of tea are wrapped in mystery, half-truths, and the tender imagination of those who first encountered it. Imagine, if you will, the rolling hills of Yunnan and Sichuan, shrouded in morning fog. The air is cool and damp, carrying the earthy scent of soil, stone, and growing things. Birds stir in the trees, their soft calls blending with the rustle of leaves. Somewhere in this landscape, a solitary figure pauses, crouching near a bush that seems unremarkable, yet vibrant in its green vitality. This figure is perhaps a scholar, perhaps a wanderer. And in the stillness, they notice the leaves. They pluck one, crush it between their fingers, and taste it, almost by accident. A subtle bitterness, followed by a fleeting sweetness, lingers on the tongue. There is a quiet surprise, a recognition that this leaf holds something unusual, something to be explored. This moment, though ordinary in its setting, becomes extraordinary in retrospect. It is the first spark of human curiosity that will unfold into the vast, intricate world of tea. The earliest references to tea are shrouded in myth as much as in fact. Ancient texts speak of emperors and sages, of wandering monks and the fertile valleys they travelled. One story tells of the legendary Emperor Shen Nong, who, while boiling water beneath a tree, saw leaves drift into his pot. The water took on a golden hue. The emperor, known for his care in experimenting with plants for health, tasted the infusion. He noted its flavour, its warmth, its subtle clarity. He spoke of refreshment and alertness, of the gentle awakening of the mind and body. These accounts, whether entirely true or lightly embellished over centuries, reflect a human tendency to notice, to pause, and to learn from the natural world. The first cup of tea was not merely a beverage. It was an invitation to mindfulness, an experiment in perception, a connection between a human and the slow rhythms of the land. We do not know precisely when tea first emerged in human awareness. Perhaps it was long before records were kept, growing wild in mountainous regions, leaves swaying in the wind, largely ignored. Perhaps early villagers discovered it by observing birds or animals, seeing them nibble the leaves, their behavior marking the plant as noteworthy. In these early times, the landscape was both generous and demanding. Wild tea did not require planting, yet it demanded observation. It rewarded patience, curiosity, and a willingness to engage with its quiet complexity. Those who noticed its qualities first were observers of nature, sensitive to subtle changes in leaf, aroma, and water. They were collectors of experience, gently tending to their discoveries, as one might tend a delicate flame. Tea's arrival into human consciousness was not dramatic. It did not announce itself with ceremony or sound. Instead, it unfolded slowly, like the dawn over the hills. People began to recognize the effects of the infusion. A drink made from these leaves seemed to sharpen the mind, to ease fatigue, to bring a certain calm energy to the body. Unlike stimulants that jolt the senses, tea offered a soft clarity, a gentle awareness. This quality would make it profoundly appealing in the centuries to come, particularly to those who valued meditation, study, and reflection. In the quiet corners of early China, tea became a companion to contemplation, a partner in thought, a humble reminder that nature offers both sustenance and insight. The early mystery of tea is deepened by the scarcity of records. Written accounts appear centuries after tea's first use, leaving historians to piece together fragments of knowledge. Archaeological evidence suggests that tea leaves may have been consumed as early as the Shang dynasty, though certainty is elusive. Some scholars point to ancient burial sites where remnants of tea leaves were found in pottery vessels, indicating that tea was considered worthy of ceremonial use even in those early times. One can imagine a gentle hand placing dried leaves into a jar, carefully sealing them, intending that the essence of tea accompany the departed on their journey. Even in death, the leaf served as a quiet symbol of comfort, warmth, and continuity. This hints at tea's significance not only as a drink, but as a bridge between human life, ritual, and the world beyond. Curiously, tea was not merely valued for its flavor. In early China, the line between medicine and nourishment was blurred. The first drinkers of tea may have regarded it as a remedy, a way to balance the body, to bring harmony to the digestive system, or to cleanse the mind. Ancient herbal compendiums speak of leaves with cooling properties, of infusions that could dispel fatigue or ease headaches. And yet, even in these practical uses, there was an aesthetic awareness. Tea was appreciated for its subtle qualities, the clarity of the water, the gentle aroma rising from the cup, the soft dance of the steam in the air. These sensory experiences contributed to a slow, reflective approach to life, one that valued observation, patience, and quiet enjoyment. It is remarkable to consider that a simple leaf could shape not only daily habits, but also philosophical sensibilities as we think about tea's early journey into human life. It is worth imagining the landscapes where it thrived. The mountains of southern China, with their mist and rain, provided a perfect environment. Gentle slopes offered rich, well-drained soil. Sunlight filtered through clouds and trees, softening the energy of the sun before it touched the earth. Streams trickled down the valleys, bringing nourishment in the form of clear, mineral-rich water. In these conditions, tea plants flourished quietly, without fanfare, each leaf growing slowly, storing sunlight and rain, preparing to offer its subtle qualities to those who noticed. The natural setting itself shaped the character of tea. It was a drink born of mountains, fog, and patience, a reflection of the environment from which it came. This connection between plant and place, between nature and human observation, is the first layer of the story we now call tea. It is also worth pausing to consider the humans who first engaged with these plants. Their lives were intertwined with the rhythms of the earth. They planted and harvested grains, tended livestock, and gathered wild herbs. They moved through forests and valleys, observing the changing seasons, listening to the wind, noting the migration of birds and insects. In such a life, attention to small details was a survival skill. Noticing the leaves of a wild plant, recognizing its qualities, and experimenting with its infusion would have been a natural extension of their daily attentiveness. In this way, tea was not merely discovered, it was co-created. Humans and nature, in delicate cooperation, allowed the leaf to become a part of daily life, a part of thought, and eventually a part of culture. Even the act of tasting tea for the first time would have carried a quiet, profound curiosity. Imagine lifting a vessel of warm water infused with crushed leaves to the lips. The aroma curls softly into the senses. The flavor is complex yet gentle, bitter and sweet, light and grounding. With each sip, the mind opens, not in excitement, but in subtle awareness. There is room for reflection, for observation, for the slow unfolding of understanding. This slow revelation mirrors the very landscapes where tea grew, calm, layered, and quietly intricate. Early drinkers may not have known the full potential of the leaf, but they felt its presence in the body and mind. They began to notice its effects over time, the easing of fatigue, the clarity of thought, the gentle warmth spreading through the chest. In this way, tea became a companion to human thought, a soft, persistent guide toward mindfulness and reflection. And so, the first chapter of tea's story in ancient China is one of mystery, observation, and patient discovery. There is no great proclamation, no singular moment of invention. There is only the quiet recognition of a plant, the careful attention of those who noticed it, and the gentle integration of a new experience into daily life. In the rolling hills, the misty valleys, and the flowing streams, tea began its slow journey. It entered human life through curiosity, through trial, through the subtle interplay between nature and awareness. It was a leaf, a flavor, a comfort, and a teacher, and it was only the beginning. The mystery of tea's origins is a reminder of the small, quiet ways that humans engage with the world. Sometimes discovery is not sudden. It is not loud or dramatic. It is a gentle noticing, a patient tasting, a reflective pause. The leaves of tea teach us this lesson. Even in their earliest chapters, they remind us to slow down, to observe, and to appreciate the subtle gifts that nature offers. And in this quiet reflection, we begin to understand not just the origins of a beverage, but the beginnings of a human relationship with thought, culture, and ritual. A relationship that would unfold over millennia, shaped by mountains, rivers, hands, and cups. In the end, the story of tea begins in stillness. It begins in the folds of ancient hills, in the curiosity of wandering humans, and in the tender attention to a small green leaf. And as we drift in imagination through those misty valleys, watching early drinkers taste and learn, we enter a world that is calm, reflective, and alive with quiet possibility. Here, in the soft light of history, tea waits patiently, ready to unfold its story, sip by sip, over the centuries to come. The earliest interactions between humans and tea were quiet, almost imperceptible. There was no ceremony, no intention beyond simple curiosity. People noticed the leaves growing on the wild Camellia sinensis, their glossy green surfaces catching the soft light of the sun. In the mountains of ancient China, mist curled around the slopes, softening edges and painting the landscape with a delicate silver haze. It was in this stillness that the first connections between humans and tea were made. One might imagine a farmer walking along a narrow path, the damp soil giving slightly under his feet. He pauses near a shrub, noticing the scent of its leaves. Perhaps he crushes a small leaf between his fingers and inhales, experiencing a faint aroma that is unfamiliar but intriguing. Maybe, out of simple practicality, he drops it into a pot of boiling water, intending to see if it might have nourishing qualities. The first cup of tea was not ceremonial. It was accidental. And yet, even in that simple act, a dialogue between nature and human curiosity began. Early uses of tea were often medicinal. Ancient texts, some later verified by archaeological findings, suggests that tea leaves were regarded as more than a simple drink. They were considered remedies, subtle tools to restore balance to the body. Fatigue, digestive discomfort, fever, and even mental weariness could be eased with tea. The leaves were sometimes mixed with other herbs, dried and crushed into powders, or infused into water to extract their essence. People observed how their bodies reacted to the drink, noting both comfort and alertness. This slow, attentive process was a gentle form of experimentation, almost meditative in its pace. The knowledge of tea spread slowly, carried along the paths of human movement. Travelers, monks, and wandering scholars would stumble upon tea bushes and bring their leaves back to villages and communities. Stories of its effects passed from person to person, often whispered, like a secret gift from the mountains. There was no rush. The leaves' reputation grew organically, nurtured by curiosity and repeated experience. Communities began to observe that tea was more than mere flavor. It was a subtle agent of clarity, of warmth, of quiet focus. In these early days, tea was intertwined with daily life in unobtrusive ways. People might sip it during work in the fields, pausing between tasks to feel the warmth of the infusion in their hands, the taste lingering on their tongues. They noticed the calming effect it had, the way thoughts seemed to sharpen, the mind becoming more attuned to subtle rhythms. Perhaps they spoke of it with neighbors or shared small leaves with guests, though such sharing was informal, almost instinctual. Tea became part of the daily fabric, a companion to both effort and reflection. Monks and scholars, in particular, began to appreciate tea's subtle qualities. For those who spent long hours in meditation, seeking clarity of mind, tea provided a gentle support. It allowed the mind to remain alert, while the body remained calm. They discovered that tea could be more than sustenance. It could guide attention, sharpen perception, and offer a soft, sustaining energy. In this way, tea began to weave itself into the contemplative practices of early China, fostering a quiet awareness that mirrored the natural rhythms of the surrounding hills and forests. The initial discovery of tea also involved experimentation with its preparation. Early drinkers noticed that water temperature, leaf age, and the method of infusion all influenced the flavor and effect. Young, tender leaves were prized for their sweetness and subtle aroma, while older leaves carried a deeper, more complex flavor. Leaves might be lightly crushed or left whole, steeped in cold water or boiled briefly. Each method revealed a slightly different character, inviting further exploration. In this way, tea was not just a discovery of nature, but a collaboration between human attention and the qualities of the leaf itself. Environmental observation played a key role. People noticed that tea plants thrived in shaded slopes, that misty mornings produced tender leaves, that certain soil types yielded particular flavors. They began to recognize patterns, understanding that the plant and the place were inseparable. It was not enough to simply gather leaves. One had to observe, to learn from the land, to cultivate patience. Each cup of tea reflected the harmony between the drinker, the plant, and the environment, a harmony that would come to define tea culture in centuries to follow. In these early centuries, tea's uses were both practical and symbolic. It was a source of comfort during long journeys, a companion during quiet reflection, and a subtle medicine to soothe weariness. Sometimes, tea leaves were even carried along as small treasures, exchanged as gifts or offerings. Their value was recognized not for wealth or status, but for their ability to provide clarity, calm, and attentiveness. A single leaf held the potential to connect human experience to the wider world of nature, to create moments of quiet contemplation amidst daily labor and movement. There is a subtle poetry in imagining these early encounters. The leaves were small, almost unremarkable, yet they carried within them a complexity that would unfold over millennia. Those first sips were acts of discovery, intimate and unhurried. The drinker was simultaneously exploring flavor, observing effect, and engaging with the plant as a living presence. In this dialogue between human and leaf, tea was no longer just a plant. It was a bridge between the material and the thoughtful, between the body and the mind, between the ordinary and the reflective. As communities slowly incorporated tea into their daily lives, they also began to record observations. Ancient texts and later herbal treatises note the properties of the plant, its effects on the body, and its gentle impact on the mind. Though these records were sparse, they reveal a careful attention to detail, a slow accumulation of knowledge. People learned that the timing of harvest mattered, that the young leaves carried different qualities than the older ones, and that water quality influenced taste. Every cup was a lesson, every infusion an experiment in patience and awareness. Even in its simplicity, tea demanded respect. Its leaves were delicate, its preparations subtle. Mishandling could alter flavor. Oversteeping could create bitterness. Early drinkers developed a sensitivity to these variations, honing skills that would become traditions. In observing tea, humans learned not only about the plant but about themselves, their own patience, perception, and ability to engage with subtlety. The plant guided the drinker toward attentiveness, teaching a quiet form of mindfulness long before such a term existed. The earliest encounters with tea remind us that discovery often unfolds slowly, with patience and careful observation. The plant does not announce itself with grandeur. It reveals its qualities gradually, rewarding those who notice, taste, and reflect. In the soft hills of ancient China, amidst mist and quiet streams, humans first met the tea leaf not with ceremony, but with attentive curiosity. And in those early sips, the foundations of culture, ritual, and appreciation were quietly being laid. Even as tea spread through villages and valleys, it remained a gentle companion rather than a commodity. Its role was practical, yet it carried within it hints of philosophy, a soft, unspoken lesson about attentiveness, observation, and the simple pleasures of daily life. The early uses of tea, whether medicinal, restorative, or reflective, reveal a culture attuned to the subtleties of the natural world, a culture willing to notice and engage with small, persistent wonders. And so, the discovery of tea in ancient China was not a single moment of invention, but a slow, unfolding process. It emerged from curiosity, from attentiveness, from experimentation with leaves, water, and heat. It touched both the body and the mind, offering clarity, warmth, and comfort. It connected humans to the rhythms of their environment, inviting reflection and awareness. Each early encounter, each first sip, contributed to the quiet, enduring story of tea, a story that would continue to evolve, shaped by observation, cultivation, and the gentle artistry of human care. The journey of tea's early use is a lesson in patience. It teaches that discovery is often subtle, unfolding in small, deliberate moments. In the misty hills, in the careful plucking of leaves, in the careful tending of water, we see the beginnings of a relationship that would define culture, ritual, and contemplation for centuries. Tea's story begins in observation, in the soft exploration of flavor and effect, and in the quiet human desire to learn from the natural world. In this early chapter, tea is more than a plant. It is a companion, a teacher, and a soft mirror of human attentiveness. It reminds us that even the smallest discoveries can hold profound significance, that a simple leaf can shape thought, ritual, and culture. And as we imagine the first drinkers lifting a warm vessel to their lips, inhaling the gentle aroma, and feeling the slow clarity of the infusion, we are invited to enter a world of calm, observation, and quiet wonder, a world that continues to unfold with each sip of tea, even millennia later. As tea moved from the accidental discovery of wild leaves to a more intentional presence in human life, early drinkers encountered new questions. How could the plant be nurtured beyond its wild environment? How could its subtle qualities be preserved, refined, and shared? The first cultivation of tea was not immediate or easy. It required patience, observation, and careful experimentation, a dialogue between human effort and the slow rhythms of nature. In the valleys and hills of southern China, the wild tea bush thrived with little interference. Rain, mist, and sun conspired naturally to produce tender leaves. But humans, curious and attentive, began to wonder if the plant could be grown deliberately, if its qualities could be encouraged and refined. The first attempts at cultivation were modest. People collected seeds from the wild and planted them near their homes, along terraces, or in shaded groves. They observed the soil, noting which slopes produced the most tender leaves. They watched how the sun filtered through the trees and how water gathered in the valleys. Every detail mattered. Even a slight shift in moisture or exposure could alter the character of the leaf. The process of growing tea revealed itself as both delicate and demanding. Young plants required protection from harsh sun, heavy rain, and early frost. They had to be nurtured with care. Their roots tended to ensure they anchored deeply in the soil. Early cultivators learned that patience was essential. A tea bush would not yield a valuable harvest immediately. Leaves had to be allowed to mature just enough to carry the subtle balance of flavor, yet harvested before they became tough or bitter. In this way, tea cultivation became an exercise in attentiveness, a slow, almost meditative practice that mirrored the rhythms of daily life. Preparation posed its own challenges. Early drinkers quickly discovered that tea was not merely about plucking leaves and boiling water. The method of handling the leaf affected both flavor and effect. Fresh leaves, when boiled too long, could become bitter. Dried leaves, if stored improperly, could lose their subtle aroma. Crushed leaves released stronger flavors, while whole leaves offered a gentler infusion. Water quality was also crucial. Streams from the mountains provided soft, mineral-rich water that enhanced flavor, while stagnant or overly hard water could mask the leaf's qualities. Early experimentation involved observing, tasting, and adjusting. Every cup was a lesson in technique and patience. The first cultivators also faced questions about timing. When was the ideal moment to harvest? They learned to observe the plant's growth cycles, noting the tender shoots that appeared after spring rains, the subtle sweetness of young leaves, and the deeper flavor of leaves that matured over longer periods. Some discovered that picking early in the morning, when dew still clung to the leaves, yielded a purer taste. Others experimented with sun-drying, steaming, or lightly roasting leaves to enhance their character. These methods were rudimentary at first, born of trial, intuition, and close observation of natural processes. There was also a social element to cultivation. Communities began to gather during harvests, working together to pluck, dry, and store the leaves. The process was gentle but deliberate, requiring coordination and care. Hands moved slowly, selecting only the most promising shoots. Bundles of leaves were carried carefully, avoiding bruising or crushing. People learned to sense the weight, texture, and subtle scent of leaves that were ready, distinguishing them from those that were immature or overripe. In this, early tea cultivation fostered not only technical skill, but also a rhythm of cooperation, a quiet shared purpose that connected people to each other and to the land. Even as they learned to cultivate the plant, early drinkers encountered the challenge of preserving tea. Fresh leaves were perishable, their subtle qualities fading quickly after harvest. Drying and storing the leaves became essential, but methods were not immediately obvious. Some attempted to spread leaves on mats in the sun, while others experimented with gentle roasting over fires. They noticed that careful handling preserved aroma and flavor, while careless treatment produced harsh, unappealing results. Each innovation was a small step, a refinement born of observation and patience. Over time, these techniques formed the foundation for more sophisticated methods of tea preparation, yet always with the same quiet emphasis on respect for the plant. The first cultivation and preparation challenges were more than technical obstacles. They were invitations to mindfulness, to observation, and to humility. Tea demanded careful attention, rewarding those who moved slowly, who noted subtle differences, and who respected the interplay between plant, water, and environment. Every failed experiment offered insight, every imperfect infusion a lesson. In this way, tea became a teacher, guiding early humans toward patience, attentiveness, and reflection. Environmental factors added complexity. Tea plants were sensitive to climate, soil composition, and sunlight. Early cultivators had to learn to read the land, to recognize microclimates where leaves thrived, and to adapt their methods accordingly. Slopes with gentle drainage, soil rich in organic matter, and access to misty air proved ideal. Yet even in optimal conditions, yields varied, reminding humans of the plant's delicate nature. These early observations laid the groundwork for centuries of agricultural wisdom, as humans gradually learned to work in harmony with the slow cycles of growth, rather than imposing rigid control. The rhythm of cultivation mirrored the rhythm of human life. Harvests occurred at a measured pace, with careful attention to the timing of each step. Drying, rolling, and storing the leaves required coordination, a gentle touch, and patience. Early cultivators discovered that haste diminished quality, while careful practice enhanced it. This slow rhythm of observation, selection, and gentle handling became a hallmark of tea culture, shaping not only techniques but attitudes toward effort, labor, and attention to subtlety. Even in these early times, the aesthetic qualities of tea were appreciated. Beyond flavor and medicinal effects, people noticed the aroma, the color of the infusion, the soft dance of steam rising from the cup. Each step of cultivation and preparation influenced these qualities, offering a form of quiet creativity. Selecting the best leaves, drying them with care, and brewing them gently became an art. even if its practitioners did not yet formalize it. Tea was both utility and elegance, a reflection of the interplay between human effort and natural beauty. The cultivation and preparation challenges also encouraged innovation. Early drinkers experimented with different implements: simple knives for pruning shoots, mats for drying leaves, pots for boiling water. They discovered the subtle effects of fire, of moisture, of the angle of the sun. Every adaptation was small but meaningful, a refinement born from careful observation, and a desire to enhance both flavor and experience. These early experiments laid the foundation for more systematic approaches in later centuries, yet they remained grounded in a quiet attentiveness to the plant and its environment. Ultimately, the first cultivation and preparation challenges revealed tea as a slow, unfolding dialogue between humans and nature. The plant offered its qualities, but humans had to learn to receive them, to nurture them, and to refine them with patience. In doing so, they developed skills not only in agriculture and culinary practice, but in mindfulness, observation, and cooperation. Tea was no longer just a wild leaf discovered by chance. It was a cultivated presence in human life, demanding respect, care, and thoughtful attention. And so, in these early centuries, tea became a teacher of patience and observation. Its cultivation demanded attentiveness. Its preparation demanded care, and every cup reflected the effort of human hands attuned to the slow rhythms of growth and flavor. From the first planted seeds to the careful drying of leaves, tea shaped a way of life that valued quiet skill, delicate touch, and mindful labor. In this way, the challenges of cultivation and preparation were not obstacles to be overcome. They were the very conditions through which tea revealed its character, and through which humans began to understand the subtle art of living alongside it. Tea, in its earliest days, was inseparable from the landscapes that nurtured it. The wild Camellia sinensis was not a plant of open plains or arid deserts. It favored gentle slopes, mist-laden valleys, and the soft embrace of sunlight filtered through clouds and trees. To understand tea is to understand the environment that shaped it, a delicate balance of soil, water, air, and season. In southern China, the hills and low mountains created ideal conditions. Slopes with gentle drainage allowed water to settle just enough to nourish roots without flooding them. Mist and fog rolled through the valleys, tempering the sun's heat and providing a soft, constant moisture. This moisture was not harsh rain, but a gentle, enveloping presence, soaking into the leaves and soil in a way that encouraged slow, deliberate growth. The air was filled with the quiet scent of earth, wood, and damp greenery, a subtle perfume that mingled with the aroma of tea leaves themselves. Soil played an essential role. Early tea gatherers and cultivators noticed that leaves from certain slopes were more tender, more aromatic, or less bitter. Rich, loamy soils, often layered with fallen leaves and natural compost, produce plants with a gentle sweetness, while rockier, thinner soils yielded stronger, more robust flavors. In this way, even without formal understanding of chemistry or nutrients, humans observed that the land itself imprinted upon the tea. The plant was not isolated. It carried within it the story of the hills, the rains, and the subtle richness of the earth. Climate, too, shaped the character of tea. The regions where tea thrived experienced mild winters, warm springs, and soft monsoon rains. Sudden frost could harm young shoots, while prolonged droughts could slow growth and diminish flavor. Early observers learned to read these subtle variations. The timing of buds, the resilience of young shoots, and the gentle unfolding of leaves all responded to the surrounding conditions. In this way, tea became a measure of the environment, a living reflection of weather, season, and climate. Sunlight was both a friend and a careful companion. Tea plants often grew under partial shade. The sun's rays filtered through higher trees. This dappled light encouraged slow growth, preserving the tenderness of leaves and enhancing their subtle flavors. Too much sun could toughen leaves. Too little could diminish their vibrancy. Cultivators began to experiment with placement, planting young shrubs near trees that provided natural shelter or adjusting terraces to optimize light. Every leaf was shaped not only by human hands, but by the gentle guidance of the sun and sky. Water, flowing in streams and collecting in small pools, was vital. The early mountains of Yunnan and Sichuan offered soft, mineral-rich water that enhanced the flavor of tea when brewed. Villagers noticed that tea leaves growing near clear streams had a delicate sweetness, while leaves in drier areas produced a different character. Early drinkers may have scooped water from the streams, tasting it alongside the leaves, developing an intuition for which waters complemented the plant's qualities. In this way, the environment and its resources were as much a part of tea's story as the leaves themselves. The ecology of tea included more than soil, water, and sunlight. Surrounding flora and fauna shaped the microclimates where the plant thrived. Forests provided shelter from wind and frost, while birds and insects contributed to pollination and soil fertility. Fallen leaves enriched the soil with subtle nutrients. Even the movement of animals across the land influenced how plants spread and grew. Early humans, attuned to these rhythms, learned to respect the broader ecosystem. They understood that tea could not be forced. It needed cooperation with its surroundings. Altitude influenced character as well. Tea grown on higher slopes, where mist lingered longer and temperatures were slightly cooler, often developed a gentle sweetness and fragrant aroma. Lower slopes produced leaves with a more robust, earthy flavor. Humans, observing these differences, began to select locations carefully, sometimes traveling to distant hills in search of particular qualities. These journeys through mountain valleys were slow, reflective, and often solitary, allowing time for observation and appreciation of the subtle diversity of the landscape. Seasonality mattered deeply. The first flush of leaves in spring was prized for its tenderness and subtle flavor, while later harvests offered more robust character. Early cultivators noticed that timing, rainfall, and sunlight influenced the chemical balance within the leaves, affecting both taste and effect. Harvesting became an exercise in attentiveness, picking not too early, not too late, guided by careful observation rather than rigid schedule. Every cup reflected not only human care but the rhythms of the seasons, the gentle unfolding of time within the hills. Even wind and air currents influenced growth. Tea plants were delicate, their tender shoots easily damaged by strong gusts. Early cultivators learned to plant in sheltered areas or use natural windbreaks. The gentle morning breezes carrying mist and the scent of damp earth encouraged slow transpiration, balancing moisture in the leaves. In this interplay between wind and leaf, humans witnessed the quiet dialogue between plant and environment, learning to move in harmony rather than against it. These environmental observations informed early cultivation. Humans began to understand that they were not masters of the plant, but partners in its growth. The ideal environment, soft slopes, rich soil, filtered sunlight, gentle moisture, was a combination of natural advantage and human care. By observing, adapting, and responding, early cultivators allowed the tea plant to reveal its qualities. Each successful harvest reflected this cooperation, a balance between natural rhythm and deliberate attention. Even in the wild, tea plants grew in clusters, not isolation. Their roots intertwined with the soil, their leaves mingled with those of neighboring shrubs. Observing this, humans began to appreciate the subtle communal life of the plants. The health of one shrub often reflected the health of its surroundings. Cultivation required similar attentiveness, spacing plants thoughtfully, allowing air and light to reach each leaf, and observing the vitality of the surrounding soil and flora. Every act of care mirrored the natural harmony observed in the wild. Perhaps most remarkable was the subtle beauty of the environment itself. Mist-clad hills, soft sunlight, clear streams, and rustling leaves created a setting that invited reflection. Early drinkers and cultivators of tea were surrounded by this calm, immersive landscape. The environment shaped the plant, yes, but it also shaped the humans who interacted with it. Walking among the shrubs, listening to the wind, observing the interplay of sun and shadow, they learned to move slowly, to notice deeply, and to appreciate subtlety. Tea, in this sense, was as much a teacher of mindfulness as a source of refreshment. The connection between environment and tea went beyond survival and flavor. The subtle characteristics of the leaves, aroma, texture, sweetness, bitterness, were reflections of place. Every sip carried with it the mountains, streams, sunlight, and mist that nurtured it. Early humans learned to recognize these qualities, noting the influence of altitude, soil, water, and shade. This attentiveness laid the groundwork for later traditions of terroir in tea appreciation, centuries before the term existed. And so, tea thrived where humans observed, respected, and collaborated with nature. The plant's success was inseparable from the gentle, misty hills, the soft rains, the filtered sunlight, and the attentive care of those who noticed and learned from it. It was a plant that demanded observation and patience, rewarding those who moved slowly and noticed carefully. In these quiet landscapes, tea began to reveal its character, its complexity, and its subtle power to shape human life and thought. In understanding the environment where tea first grew, we see the earliest lessons it offered: harmony with nature, attentiveness to subtle change, and the patient unfolding of character over time. Tea was born in the soft folds of mountains and valleys, nurtured by mist and sunlight, and guided by human curiosity. It was never a hurried plant, and it demanded that those who cultivated it move slowly, observe carefully, and respect the rhythms of the world around them. In the quiet hills and misty valleys, surrounded by the soft hum of wind, water, and rustling leaves, humans first learned what tea could be. It was a mirror of its environment, delicate, patient, and subtle. Every leaf carried the memory of the land, and every cup, centuries later, would carry the essence of those early hills. Tea thrived because humans observed, adapted, and respected the environment. And in this, the plant taught its first, most enduring lesson: that beauty, flavor, and wisdom often emerge only when we move with care and patience. attentive to the slow, quiet rhythms of life. With the realization that tea could be nurtured beyond its wild habitats, humans began the slow, careful work of cultivation. The process was never rushed. Each step required patience, observation, and an intimate understanding of the plant's rhythms. Early cultivators were guided not by manuals or instruction, but by their own careful attention to leaf, soil, water, and season. Their hands, moving with purpose yet gentleness, learned to read the subtle signs of growth and vitality. Tools were simple, yet their use reflected careful thought and attentiveness. Small knives or pruning shears were employed to trim shoots, encouraging fresh growth while leaving older leaves intact. Wooden or bamboo baskets were used to collect plucked leaves without bruising them. Mats made of reeds or bamboo provided surfaces for drying leaves in the sun or over gentle smoke. Even the choice of water for cleaning and processing was deliberate, as soft, mineral-rich streams enhanced rather than diminished the natural qualities of the leaf. Each implement was modest, yet essential. Their careful use shaped the character of the tea itself. Cultivators learned that the spacing of plants mattered. Too close, and air circulation suffered, leading to fragile or diseased leaves. Too far apart, and the microclimate that nurtured tender shoots was lost. Planting became an act of careful observation, balancing the needs of each shrub with the rhythms of the land. They watched how sunlight filtered through higher trees, how mist lingered in valleys, and how soil retained moisture. Every adjustment was small but meaningful, a reflection of human attentiveness aligned with the slow growth of the plant. Pruning was another subtle art. By carefully removing certain branches, early farmers encouraged new shoots to emerge. These young leaves were prized for their tenderness and gentle flavor. Older leaves, left undisturbed, contributed to the overall vitality of the plant, but were less desirable for immediate harvest. The act of pruning required a steady hand, careful timing, and a delicate balance between intervention and respect. The cultivator learned to read the plant's signals, the angle of a branch, the color of a shoot, the firmness of a leaf. Every movement was purposeful, yet gentle, a quiet conversation between human and shrub. Drying methods also demanded careful attention. Freshly plucked leaves were delicate, their flavors fragile. Early cultivators discovered that spreading them on mats in the sun allowed gentle evaporation, preserving subtle aroma while reducing moisture. Others experimented with light roasting over low fires, observing how heat altered texture and taste. Each method was a balance between patience and subtle manipulation. Too much heat could scorch the leaves, too little left them damp and prone to decay. In these early experiments, humans were learning not only the mechanics of preparation, but the philosophy of attentiveness, an understanding that the slow, careful unfolding of process often led to the richest reward. Rolling leaves was another innovation that arose from close observation. By gently pressing and rolling them with hands or simple tools, early cultivators noticed that flavor and aroma could be enhanced. The process required patience and rhythm. Hands moved slowly, rolling leaves to avoid tearing, watching for subtle changes in texture and scent. This tactile engagement created a bond between human and plant, a quiet cooperation in which the leaves responded to touch and timing. Every twist and press reflected careful attention to the smallest details, an early form of craft that emphasized presence and mindfulness. terracing hillsides became a practical method for optimizing cultivation. By creating gentle steps along slopes, cultivators managed water flow and soil stability, reducing erosion while maximizing exposure to sun and mist. These terraces were simple, yet effective, shaping the landscape to accommodate human care while respecting the natural contours of the land. In this way, cultivation became a blend of observation, intervention, and harmony with the environment, a recurring theme in tea's slow unfolding history. Irrigation was not sophisticated, yet even simple methods demonstrated insight and attentiveness. Diverting small streams or guiding rainfall through channels allowed moisture to reach plants evenly. Excess water was drained carefully to prevent stagnation or root damage. Every adjustment was measured, responsive to subtle signals from the soil, the leaves, and the surrounding climate. In these actions, humans learned that cultivation was not domination, but careful cooperation, a dialogue with the rhythms of nature rather than a fight against them. Timing remained central to success. The first flush of spring leaves was coveted, their young shoots delicate and fragrant. Late spring or summer leaves, more robust, required different handling and processing. Early cultivators learned to read the plants, observing the angle of the sun, the dampness of the soil, the glint of dew on the leaves. Harvesting became an act of careful presence, a slow awareness that honored both the plant's life cycle and the needs of those who would drink its leaves. Even the simplest implements carried significance. A wooden knife, a bamboo basket, a sun-drying mat. They were extensions of human attentiveness. Each action, whether trimming, plucking, rolling, or drying, reflected a slow understanding of cause and effect, a recognition that every gesture influenced the final character of the tea. Through these tools, humans not only shaped the plant but shaped themselves, developing patience, skill, and a reflective sensitivity that became integral to the culture surrounding tea. Cooperation between humans and nature was never theoretical. It was lived quietly through daily labor. Hands moved slowly across leaves, careful not to bruise, careful to select the most promising shoots. Water was drawn and poured with awareness. Fire tended gently. Observations of light, wind, and moisture guided each action. Tea was not produced in haste. It was cultivated as a slow, thoughtful collaboration, a quiet conversation with the earth that demanded attention, care, and respect. Early cultivators also began to observe patterns across time. Seasons influenced growth, rainfall altered flavor, and soil composition affected texture. They recorded these lessons in memory, in conversation, and eventually in rudimentary texts. The knowledge accumulated slowly, refined with experience. Even without formal science, they understood principles of growth, care, and timing that would guide tea culture for centuries. Each cup reflected not only the skill of preparation, but the cumulative attentiveness of generations who had learned to read the subtle language of the plant. The first cultivation methods were not standardized. Different regions, even different families, experimented with techniques suited to their land, climate, and observations. This diversity allowed for a richness of flavor, texture, and aroma that became a hallmark of tea. The environment shaped practice, and practice refined the experience. Each hillside, each valley, each stream contributed uniquely, resulting in a subtle variety that celebrated both place and human attention. Perhaps most quietly, early cultivation taught lessons in humility. Tea grew slowly, demanded patience, and responded delicately to human intervention. Overzealous pruning, excessive fire, or careless harvesting led to diminished quality. Success required observation, restraint, and responsiveness. In this way, the act of cultivation became a mirror for human qualities: attentiveness, patience, and gentle skill. Tea was not conquered. It was invited, nurtured, and respected. Through these early methods and tools, humans learned to become partners with the plant. Every step of cultivation, the spacing of shrubs, the pruning of shoots, the careful drying and rolling of leaves, was an act of observation and care. Tea rewarded attentiveness, teaching that patience, sensitivity, and subtle action produce richness not only in flavor, but in experience. Even without knowing it, early cultivators were laying the foundation for a culture of care, ritual, and reflection that would continue for millennia. And so, the first cultivation and tools were simple in form but profound in effect. They guided humans toward a slow attentiveness, a partnership with nature, and a delicate artistry in preparation. Tea thrived not by force, but through observation, gentle intervention, and respect for the environment. Each leaf, carefully pruned and processed, carried within it the lessons of time, patience, and cooperation, lessons that would ripple across generations, shaping not only flavor, but the very way humans approached work, observation, and quiet mindfulness. As tea cultivation became more refined, it gradually shifted from simple curiosity into a rhythm woven into daily life. The care given to plants, the timing of harvests, and the preparation of leaves evolved into quiet rituals. In the soft hills and misty valleys of ancient China, human effort was slow, deliberate, and filled with intention. Every gesture, from plucking the tender shoots to arranging them for drying, carried purpose and reflection. The earliest gatherings around tea were not formalized ceremonies, but shared moments of attentiveness. Families would harvest together, moving along terraces or gentle slopes with a shared sense of patience. Hands brushed lightly over leaves, selecting only the young, promising shoots. Baskets were carried with care, balanced to avoid bruising, and placed gently under sun or smoke for drying. These moments were as much about observation and care as they were about productivity. In the quiet cooperation of hands and eyes, humans discovered the rhythm of tea, a rhythm that echoed the slow unfolding of nature itself. Tea also became central to the movement of thought and reflection. Monks, wandering scholars, and hermits carried leaves with them, brewing small vessels as they paused along mountain trails or riversides. The act of preparation became a form of meditation. Water was drawn, leaves arranged with gentle care, and fire tended to bring the infusion to just the right temperature. Steam rose softly, carrying the subtle aroma of the plant. Each sip encouraged contemplation, a delicate awareness of both inner state and surrounding world. Tea was a bridge between human effort and the stillness of nature. Over time, these practices formalized into rituals that blended observation, labor, and reflection. The act of brewing became a carefully choreographed sequence. First, fresh water was gathered, ideally from mountain streams, soft and clear. The leaves were measured, often by weight or by careful estimation, with attention to size and tenderness. The vessel, typically a simple clay or ceramic pot, was warmed to preserve flavor. Then came the infusion, a slow process in which time, temperature, and attentiveness shaped both taste and experience. Nothing was rushed. Each movement was deliberate, echoing the patience cultivated through years of observation and practice. Tea rituals also emphasized the aesthetic qualities of the drink. Early practitioners appreciated the clarity of the liquid, the color ranging from pale green to soft gold, and the gentle curling of steam rising from the cup. They noted the subtle fragrance that accompanied each sip, sometimes floral, sometimes earthy, often delicate yet persistent. These qualities became central to the experience of tea, linking human attention with sensory perception, and shaping a culture that valued mindfulness, subtlety, and harmony. Social practices surrounding tea emerged as well. In villages and small communities, sharing a cup became a quiet form of hospitality. The act of offering tea signaled respect, attention, and a desire for connection. Visitors were received with warm vessels, and the preparation of the infusion became a gesture of care, even without elaborate ceremony. These moments reinforced social bonds, encouraging attentiveness to both plant and guest. Tea fostered a culture of subtle generosity, where human effort extended beyond cultivation to the thoughtful care of others. Seasonal observances also shaped tea-related rituals. The first harvest of spring, the tender flush of young leaves, was celebrated quietly in small gatherings. Families and communities would note the appearance of buds, timing their plucking to capture the peak of flavor. Subsequent harvests, though less prized for delicacy, were approached with equal care, their preparation reflecting both necessity and respect. Through these rhythms, tea became intertwined with the cycles of nature, a reflection of seasonal awareness and human attentiveness to time. Even storage and preservation carried ritual significance. Early cultivators learned to protect leaves from moisture, heat, and decay. Bundles were arranged carefully, sometimes pressed into small bricks or stored in bamboo containers. The act of handling leaves for storage became a quiet, contemplative task. Attention to subtle detail, the angle of stacking, the placement of containers, the ventilation of drying spaces, was not merely practical, but also a reflection of care, a philosophy of attention extended from cultivation to preparation. In these rituals, human effort was inseparable from reflection. The physical labor of plucking, rolling, drying, or brewing became a form of meditation, linking body and mind. Hands learned patience, eyes learned observation, and the mind learned to dwell in the small details of process. Tea was both a product and a teacher, its cultivation and preparation fostering skills of awareness, rhythm, and subtle attentiveness. Even minor errors, a bruised leaf, overheated water, or poor timing, became lessons in careful observation and measured effort. The rituals surrounding tea also encouraged cooperation. Communities moved together during harvest, sharing knowledge, tools, and techniques. Monks shared brewing methods along trails, travelers exchanged observations, and families transmitted practices through generations. This sharing was not formalized, but flowed naturally, a quiet exchange of insight and care. Each gesture of cooperation, however small, strengthened both social bonds and collective understanding of the plant, laying the foundations for a broader culture of tea appreciation. Beyond social and practical functions, tea rituals carried philosophical meaning. The careful handling of leaves, the slow boiling of water, the attentive observation of flavor and aroma, all reflected a worldview that valued patience, subtlety, and harmony. Tea became a lens through which humans could explore balance between effort and rest, between sensory perception and reflection, between the material and the contemplative. Even without explicit teaching, the plant shaped thought, guiding drinkers toward mindfulness and appreciation of the slow, unfolding rhythms of life. Daily life was itself imbued with ritual. Early cultivators and drinkers often began the day with tea, using the preparation and first sips to awaken both body and mind. Work in fields or gardens was punctuated by pauses for infusion, each cup a moment of reflection and recalibration. Travelers carried leaves for sustenance, sharing them along paths or river crossings, and each cup became a quiet communion with the journey and the land. Through these practices, tea integrated seamlessly into human effort, ritual, and reflection. Even in solitude, tea shaped experience. A hermit in a mountain hut, or a scholar in a quiet courtyard, would draw water, heat it slowly, and infuse the carefully selected leaves. The rising steam, the unfolding aroma, and the soft color of the liquid provided a gentle framework for contemplation. The act of brewing itself was a slow rhythm, a meditation in motion. The cup became both sustenance and teacher, encouraging attentiveness, patience, and calm presence. Over generations, these efforts, rituals, and practices accumulated into what would later be recognized as tea culture. Early humans, moving with care through cultivation, preparation, and social sharing, established patterns of attentiveness, skill, and reflection. Every gesture, plucking leaves, rolling them, tending fire, pouring water, became a moment in a larger narrative of mindfulness and care. The plant shaped human labor, and labor, in turn, shaped the plant's journey into culture. Thus, human effort in ancient tea culture was never purely practical. It was contemplative, cooperative, and artistic. The rituals that emerged, harvesting, preparing, sharing, encouraged patience, subtle observation, and a quiet attentiveness that rippled outward into daily life. Tea became more than a beverage. It became a companion to work, a guide to reflection, and a bridge between human activity and the slow, deliberate rhythms of nature. And in these quiet hills and misty valleys, as early cultivators tended their plants and carefully prepared each infusion, tea began to take its place not just in the body, but in the mind, the heart, and the rhythm of life itself. Every ritual, every careful gesture, and every shared cup reflected human attentiveness, respect for nature, and the gentle shaping of culture. A legacy that would endure for centuries, carried forward in the simple yet profound act of brewing and sipping tea. As humans continued to cultivate and cherish tea, the quiet practices of preparation evolved. Early drinkers discovered that the simplest methods, boiling leaves in water, could be refined, enhanced, and transformed. Each innovation arose from patient observation, experimentation, and a desire to deepen the experience of flavor, aroma, and effect. In this slow unfolding, tea became more than a beverage. It became an art, a ritual, and a reflection of attentive human effort. The first innovation involved drying and processing leaves more deliberately. Early cultivators noticed that fresh leaves, while tender, lost their subtle fragrance if handled carelessly. They began to experiment with sun drying, laying leaves on mats to absorb gentle warmth, allowing moisture to evaporate while preserving aroma. Later, the practice of light roasting over embers emerged. Fire was tended slowly, the heat carefully monitored, as leaves were turned and observed. Each approach revealed different characteristics. Sun-dried leaves offered a delicate, grassy sweetness, while lightly roasted leaves provided warmth and depth. These refinements marked the beginning of deliberate preparation as both practice and art. Rolling the leaves became another subtle but transformative technique. Early cultivators discovered that by gently pressing and twisting the leaves with their hands, they could release essential oils, enhance aroma, and encourage infusion. The process required rhythm, patience, and a sensitive touch. Too forceful a press would bruise the leaves, creating bitterness. Too light, and the flavors would remain muted. Rolling became a slow choreography, a tactile conversation between human and leaf. In this, the act of preparation became a reflection of mindfulness, rhythm, and attentiveness. Water, too, was recognized as integral to the experience. Early tea drinkers learned that not all water was equal. Streams from mountain valleys, soft and mineral-rich, enhanced the natural qualities of leaves. Rainwater, collected with care, offered a gentle, almost sweet infusion. Boiling water too vigorously could alter flavor, while pouring it too cool produced a weak, underdeveloped taste. The interplay between leaf and water became a field of exploration, a quiet study of subtlety and effect. Each cup reflected the choices made, the attentiveness of the brewer, and the interaction of natural elements. The vessels used for brewing also evolved. Simple clay or ceramic pots allowed gentle infusion, maintaining heat, while interacting subtly with the leaves. Some early practitioners discovered that shallow bowls highlighted aroma, while narrow pots preserved the delicate flavors of more tender shoots. The shapes and materials of vessels were carefully observed, experimented with, and refined. In this, humans recognized that every aspect of preparation, from leaf to water to pot, contributed to the overall experience. Tea was no longer simply boiled, it was orchestrated. Infusion techniques began to vary, reflecting the understanding that different leaves responded differently to temperature, timing, and method. Tender shoots were steeped briefly in warm water, releasing delicate aroma without bitterness. Older, more robust leaves could withstand longer infusion, releasing deeper flavors and warmth. Some practitioners learned to rinse leaves lightly before brewing, awakening their oils and enhancing clarity. Every step was guided by observation, subtle testing, and careful reflection. Tea became a dialogue between human and plant, a slow exploration of flavor and effect. The aesthetics of tea also became important. Early innovators noticed that the color of the infusion signaled its readiness, its character, and its quality. Pale greens, soft golds, and gentle ambers were observed with quiet attention. The rising steam curling gently from a warm cup was appreciated not only for aroma, but for its calming, meditative presence. These subtle elements of sight, smell, and tactile experience enriched the act of brewing, deepening the relationship between human and leaf. Over time, the repetition of these careful practices gave rise to what might be called early ceremonial behavior. Even without formal rules, the preparation of tea was treated with attentiveness, respect, and rhythm. Each step was deliberate. Warming the vessel, measuring leaves, heating water, pouring with care, observing aroma and color, sipping slowly. The process became a quiet performance, each motion echoing patience, skill, and observation. In these rituals, human labor was transformed into meditation, a subtle art of presence, Some early cultivators began experimenting with additives to complement flavor. Flowers, herbs, or other natural ingredients were combined with tea leaves, enhancing aroma or balancing taste. Jasmine, chrysanthemum, and other blossoms were gently infused, adding layers of complexity while retaining the subtle character of the leaf. These innovations reflected curiosity, refinement, and a sensitivity to subtle sensory interplay. Tea was becoming a medium for creative expression as much as sustenance. Storage techniques were refined as well. Leaves were carefully pressed into small bricks or stored in bamboo containers, protecting aroma and moisture. The slow drying, gentle handling, and thoughtful storage reflected the ongoing understanding that every detail from harvest to cup shaped the final experience. Even simple adjustments, turning leaves, checking dryness, controlling ventilation, were forms of attentiveness and skill. Tea became a continuous practice of care, observation, and quiet engagement with natural rhythms. In addition to physical preparation, early innovators began to codify timing and sequence. They learned that the order of steps, warming water first, then adding leaves, then allowing a brief infusion, maximized flavor and aroma. These sequences became habitual, passed from generation to generation, and eventually evolved into formalized routines. Yet, even in these emerging traditions, the emphasis remained on patience, attentiveness, and subtle observation. Ritual and practicality were intertwined, shaping both culture and experience. The innovation in brewing also inspired broader reflection. Observing the interplay between water, leaf, vessel, and temperature encouraged mindfulness. Each cup became an exploration of cause and effect, an exercise in sensitivity and awareness. Early drinkers recognized that even small variations, angle of pour, duration of steep, movement of leaves, had profound effects. Tea preparation in this sense cultivated not only flavor, but perception, teaching attentiveness, patience, and reflective observation. These early innovations laid the foundation for centuries of tea culture. Rolling, drying, roasting, infusing, and measuring all emerged from careful observation, experimentation, and deliberate attention. The process honored the subtlety of the plant, the sensitivity of human perception, and the delicate interaction of natural elements. Each cup reflected not only human skill, but centuries of accumulated understanding, a quiet heritage of care and attentiveness. In the end, the innovations in tea preparation were gentle lessons in presence. They taught that richness emerges not from haste or force, but from observation, patience, and subtle refinement. Every step, from harvest to cup, was a dialogue between humans and the slow rhythms of nature. And as leaves unfurled in water, releasing aroma and flavor, early drinkers discovered that tea could be more than sustenance. It became an art of observation, a form of meditation, and a quiet bridge between the human mind and the world it inhabited. In this, tea was both simple and profound. A single leaf, handled with care, revealed depth, nuance, and character. The innovations of preparation and brewing transformed the ordinary into the reflective. They taught that attentiveness, patience, and care shape not only flavor, but experience, and that the quiet act of brewing a cup can become a doorway into mindfulness, rhythm, and the soft, enduring pleasure of presence. As tea cultivation and preparation evolved, certain regions in ancient China became renowned for their unique leaves, flavors, and cultivation practices. These landscapes, shaped by altitude, soil, climate, and human care, produced teas that carried the character of place. The mountains, valleys, and rivers were more than backdrops. They were partners in the slow, attentive cultivation that created tea's subtlety and depth. Yunnan, in the far southwest, was one of the earliest and most celebrated regions. Its mountains rose in gentle folds, often shrouded in mist. Streams carved through the slopes, softening the soil and nurturing delicate shoots. The region's climate was warm but tempered by altitude, offering long growing seasons for the tea plant. Leaves from Yunnan were known for their rich aroma and gentle sweetness, a reflection of both environment and human care. Early cultivators learned to read the hills, selecting sites that captured the mist, maximized sun exposure, and protected tender shoots from harsh winds. Each cup from Yunnan carried the memory of mountains, rain, and patient observation. Moving eastward, the province of Sichuan offered a different landscape. Here, valleys were deep and rivers slow, creating microclimates that encourage subtle flavor variations. Tea from Sichuan often had a slightly bolder character, a warmth that reflected the slower heat of the lower valleys. Cultivators adapted methods to suit the land, careful pruning of shrubs to encourage tenderness, precise drying techniques to capture aroma, and communal harvests that honored both efficiency and care. In these valleys, tea became a shared cultural experience, linking neighbors, travelers, and scholars in a quiet rhythm of observation and reflection. The region around the Middle Yangtze River, including areas near Hubei and Anhui, became famous for their early tea gardens. Gentle slopes and well-drained soils allowed plants to thrive, while seasonal rains nurtured consistent growth. Tea from these regions was prized for its clarity, fragrance, and balanced flavor. Early texts describe how cultivators monitored rainfall and temperature, adjusting the timing of harvest to capture the optimal character of the leaves. The resulting teas were more than nourishment. They were subtle companions to thought, meditation, and the rhythms of daily life. Fujian, along the southeastern coast, introduced another layer of diversity. Here, mild winters and humid air nurtured leaves with floral notes and gentle sweetness. The proximity to the sea influenced humidity, temperature, and soil conditions, producing teas with distinctive aroma and clarity. In Fujian, human observation and experimentation were particularly evident. Cultivators refined rolling, drying, and infusion techniques to match the character of local leaves, creating preparations that emphasize balance and delicacy. These innovations reflected both attentiveness and creativity, revealing a growing awareness of how environment, plant, and human effort could harmonize. In each of these regions, the significance of tea extended beyond flavor. Leaves were markers of place, capturing the essence of mountains, rivers, mist, and sun. Early humans recognized this, noting differences between hills, slopes, and valleys. They shared leaves along trade routes. Travelers carried them to distant communities, and scholars compared qualities across regions. Tea became a living reflection of landscape, human effort, and cultural memory. Each cup told a story, not only of leaves and water, but of the hills, streams, and skies that nurtured them. These regional distinctions also shaped cultivation practices. In mountainous areas, terraces and terraces with gentle slopes controlled drainage and maximized exposure to sun and mist. In valleys, irrigation and spacing became more crucial, ensuring air circulation and protecting delicate shoots. The techniques adapted to the local environment, reflecting careful observation and human responsiveness. Cultivators understood that forcing growth or ignoring local conditions diminished quality. Success depended on collaboration with the land, a theme that persisted throughout tea history. Trade routes further amplified the significance of these regions. As tea moved along rivers, valleys, and mountain paths, it carried both flavor and cultural influence. Communities developed networks for sharing leaves, knowledge, and tools. These exchanges were subtle yet profound, spreading practices, observations, and appreciation across regions. Tea was no longer confined to its place of origin. It became a medium of connection, a reflection of the land, the people, and the slow accumulation of knowledge over generations. Over time, certain regions became renowned for particular styles, infusions, or qualities. Yunnan's deep, earthy teas, Sichuan's robust yet balanced leaves, Fujian's floral, delicate varieties, each reflected subtle differences in soil, climate, and human care. Early drinkers began to develop discernment, recognizing the origin of a leaf by taste, aroma, and appearance. This attention to nuance fostered an early sense of terroir, centuries before the term existed. Tea was not only a beverage, but a reflection of place, a living map of geography and cultivation. The prominence of certain regions also influenced social and cultural life. Villages and communities took pride in local leaves, in the care of their hills and terraces, and in the rituals surrounding preparation. Festivals emerged around the first harvest, with communal effort, shared observation, and quiet celebration. These practices were not loud or ostentatious. They were deliberate, reflective, and grounded in appreciation for the plant, the land, and the slow work of cultivation. Tea became a bridge between environment, human skill, and cultural identity. In these famous regions, cultivation also encouraged experimentation. Innovators observed how soil, mist, altitude, and slope influenced growth, flavor, and aroma. Techniques in pruning, rolling, drying, and brewing were adapted to each locale, creating subtle variations that were appreciated and preserved. Over generations, this knowledge accumulated, forming an intricate tapestry of practices that respected both the plant and the environment. Tea was thus a dialogue not only with nature, but with accumulated human experience. The significance of these regions extended beyond taste and cultivation. Tea reflected philosophy, observation, and the rhythm of life. Each landscape offered its own lessons: patience in waiting for the first flush, attentiveness in selecting the tender shoots, cooperation in shared harvests, and reflection in the act of brewing and sipping. The hills, valleys, rivers, and misty mornings became silent partners in human endeavor, shaping not only leaves, but the habits, skills, and contemplations of those who nurtured them. Even in trade, these regions retained quiet influence. Travelers and merchants carried leaves far from their origin, but the memory of place remained in every cup. Yunnan's mountains, Sichuan's valleys, Fujian's humid slopes, they were felt in aroma, color, and flavor. Early drinkers learned to appreciate not only taste but context, the subtle story of environment, human care, and slow cultivation. Tea became a living archive, a reflection of geography and human attention alike. Thus, the famous ancient tea regions were more than locations. They were teachers. The hills, valleys, mist, and rivers shaped the leaves, guided human care, and influenced preparation. Every harvest carried the essence of its origin, and every cup reflected the intimate dialogue between land, plant, and attentive human hands. These regions became the living heart of tea culture, nurturing not only flavor but observation, patience, and quiet reflection. In these landscapes, humans learned that tea was inseparable from place. The plant's subtlety demanded respect for the rhythms of soil, sun, water, and mist. Every action, planting, pruning, drying, rolling, brewing, was shaped by environment. Tea taught that quality arose from attentiveness, that richness emerged from collaboration with natural conditions, and that even the smallest leaf could carry the story of mountains, valleys, and quiet human effort. By the time tea had taken root in multiple regions, its influence extended far beyond the hills, valleys, and terraces where it grew. Tea had become a quiet companion to daily life, a marker of attentiveness, patience, and social connection. Its presence touched labor, thought, ritual, and culture. It shaped communities, inspired reflection, and provided continuity between nature and human endeavor. Tea's role in society was subtle yet profound. In homes, it marked the rhythm of daily activity. Morning tea offered a gentle awakening, a pause before labor. Afternoon infusions provided refreshment and clarity during work. Evenings with a fading light were softened by the warmth of a cup, a moment of reflection and calm. Tea became a companion to time itself, aligning human activity with the gentle cycles of the day. Its influence was neither loud nor ostentatious. It was quietly embedded in the cadence of life. The social dimension of tea was equally significant. Sharing a cup was an act of hospitality, a gesture of care and attentiveness. Guests were welcomed with warmth, not only of water and leaf, but of human attention. Villagers, travelers, scholars, and family members all experienced the subtle ritual of offering and receiving tea. It was a medium for connection, reinforcing social bonds through small, deliberate acts of care. The cup itself became a vessel of relationship, holding both liquid and human presence in quiet harmony. Tea also shaped cultural and philosophical reflection. Monks, scholars, and hermits found in tea a companion to meditation and study. The subtle warmth and gentle stimulation allowed for extended periods of contemplation, while the slow preparation encouraged mindfulness and presence. Each sip became a point of reflection, a reminder of patience, harmony, and observation. Tea guided thought, shaping not only bodily awareness but also cognitive and emotional attunement. It became a bridge between sensory experience and inner life. The aesthetic qualities of tea further enriched its cultural role. Observing the color, aroma, and clarity of an infusion became an art of perception. Subtle differences between leaves, water, and preparation were noted and appreciated. The act of brewing itself became a quiet performance, a form of meditation in motion. These aesthetic sensibilities extended into early literature, poetry, and visual culture, influencing how humans perceive beauty in subtlety, rhythm, and attentive care. Tea was a teacher not only of taste, but of perception, refinement, and mindfulness. Tea also served practical functions in society. Its gentle stimulation provided alertness for labor, study, and travel. It nourished the body and offered warmth during long journeys through misty mountains or along river valleys. Its mild medicinal qualities, soothing fatigue, aiding digestion, and calming the mind, were valued in communities where labor was physical and attention to small discomforts essential for survival. In this, tea connected daily necessity with quiet reflection, offering both sustenance and mindfulness. Trade and communication were shaped by tea as well. Leaves carried from one region to another facilitated exchange of both goods and knowledge. Travelers shared methods, experiences, and observations. Distinct regional characteristics became a subtle form of cultural identity. Yunnan, Sichuan, Fujian all left their mark in flavor, aroma, and preparation style. Tea was a medium for transmitting not only taste, but environmental understanding, skill, and communal knowledge. It shaped networks of observation and exchange, quietly linking human settlements across mountains and rivers. Communities also celebrated tea in seasonal rhythms. The first harvest of spring became an occasion for reflection, sharing, and cooperation. Families and neighbors moved together across hillsides, plucking shoots with careful attention. These collective efforts reinforced social cohesion, while offering opportunities to pass down knowledge about cultivation, preparation, and taste. Ritual and labor intertwined, creating cultural practices rooted in observation, patience, and shared human experience. Tea's cultural influence extended into philosophy and moral reflection. The act of cultivating, preparing, and sipping tea emphasized qualities like patience, attentiveness, and respect for nature. These principles shaped thought in subtle ways. Observing the growth of a plant, attending to the timing of harvest, or tending a fire for infusion became practices in mindfulness and virtue. Tea taught that care, presence, and deliberate action yielded richness both in flavor and in life. Through this slow cultivation of awareness, tea became a mirror of human thought and societal values. Even for solitary individuals, tea held significance. A scholar in a quiet courtyard, a monk in a remote temple, or a hermit in the mountains could use tea as a companion to reflection. The preparation required patience. The aroma offered focus. The warmth provided comfort. Each act of brewing and sipping created a rhythm of presence, linking mind, body, and environment. Tea shaped personal life as much as social life, fostering attentiveness, harmony, and a gentle appreciation for subtlety. Tea also influenced creativity. Poets and writers used it as a companion for thought. Musicians and artists noted its calming effect on the senses. The slow unfolding of aroma, flavor, and warmth encouraged reflection and inspired quiet expression. Tea did not command attention. It guided it. It fostered subtle, sustained focus, allowing the mind to notice, observe, and explore. In this way, the plant became both subject and instrument, nurturing the human capacity for appreciation, thought, and art. In essence, tea's meaning for human society was multifaceted. It was sustenance, ritual, aesthetic, companion, teacher, and medium of connection. It shaped daily rhythms, social bonds, personal reflection, and cultural identity. Its subtle presence encouraged patience, observation, and attentiveness. It taught humans to notice the small details of life, to honor the rhythms of nature, and to engage with care, both with plants and with one another. Perhaps most quietly, tea reminded humans of their place within a larger world. The plant grew slowly, responded delicately to its environment, and revealed its qualities only through attentive care. Its preparation demanded rhythm, patience, and presence. Tea thus became a teacher of humility and awareness, demonstrating that richness and refinement were the product of slow, careful engagement rather than haste. In every cup, humans glimpsed the slow rhythms of nature, the collaboration between human effort and environment, and the subtle rewards of attentiveness. Across centuries, tea became a living thread in the fabric of culture. It shaped daily life, social customs, artistic expression, and moral reflection. Its influence was quiet, persistent, and profound, spreading through valleys, hills, and communities. Tea connected humans to each other and to the world around them, fostering both observation and introspection. It became an enduring marker of culture, linking the practical with the reflective, labor with meditation, and flavor with mindfulness. Ultimately, tea in ancient China was never just a beverage. It was a subtle teacher, a quiet companion, and a reflection of the environment, human effort, and cultural values. Its significance lay not only in taste or aroma, but in the careful attention, patience, and rhythm it nurtured. Tea shaped human society by fostering cooperation, reflection, aesthetic awareness, and moral contemplation. In these ways, the humble leaf became a silent guide, teaching humans to move with care, observe deeply, and appreciate the slow unfolding of life itself. As we reflect on the journey of tea through ancient China, it becomes clear that this humble leaf carries more than flavor. It carries the imprint of mountains, mist, rivers, and soil. It carries the slow, deliberate work of human hands, the quiet observation of seasons, and the patient unfolding of centuries. Tea is a bridge between nature and humanity, a gentle guide reminding us of the value of attentiveness, patience, and care. The act of preparing and drinking tea is, at its core, an engagement with time. A leaf plucked in spring takes hours, sometimes days, to reach the cup. Water is drawn, heat is applied carefully, and the infusion is observed with quiet presence. Each step slows the pace of life, offering a gentle counterpoint to haste and distraction. Tea encourages us to move deliberately, to notice subtleties, to inhabit the present moment with awareness and curiosity. In this, it is both sustenance and teacher. Tea also embodies continuity. Across generations, knowledge of cultivation, preparation, and appreciation has been passed quietly, often without formal documentation. Hands guide leaves, eyes observe subtle changes, and wisdom flows from teacher to student, parent to child, neighbor to traveler. Every sip contains centuries of human attention, reflection, and care. Drinking tea is, therefore, an act of connection, not only with the leaf itself, but with the countless hands and minds that shaped its journey. Its subtlety teaches a gentle philosophy. Tea does not demand, does not shout, does not force itself into attention. It offers flavor, aroma, warmth, and clarity only to those who approach with care. In this, it mirrors the rhythms of life. Richness is rarely immediate. It arises through patience, sensitivity, and attentiveness. Each cup becomes a meditation on presence, a reflection on effort, and a reminder that small, deliberate actions can yield enduring reward. Beyond personal reflection, tea offers a model for community. The shared act of preparing and drinking tea fosters quiet cooperation, attentiveness to others, and appreciation for subtle gestures. Offering a cup is a gesture of respect, a moment of connection, and an acknowledgement of shared experience. In early villages and valleys, this simple act strengthened bonds, encouraged patience, and cultivated a sense of harmony. Tea reminds us that attention and care extended toward others enrich both giver and recipient. The plant itself embodies harmony with the natural world. Tea grows slowly, responds delicately to environment, and thrives best when humans act in cooperation rather than force. Its leaves, shaped by sun, soil, water, and mist, reflect the rhythm of mountains and valleys. Humans, in turn, learn attentiveness, patience, and sensitivity. Tea becomes a living dialogue between nature and culture, a subtle teacher of balance, humility, and respect for the slow unfolding of life. Even today, the legacy of tea carries this philosophy forward. The methods of cultivation, the care in preparation, and the quiet rituals surrounding the cup remind us that simplicity is profound, that subtlety is meaningful, and that attentiveness shapes experience. Tea is a living thread, connecting past to present, human effort to natural rhythm, and flavor to contemplation. It teaches that richness arises not from haste, but from deliberate engagement with the world around us. In the gentle steam rising from a cup, in the soft green of a freshly plucked leaf, in the quiet act of observing aroma and color, we glimpse the cumulative wisdom of centuries. Tea invites reflection, slowing thought and encouraging awareness. It reminds us that even the smallest gestures, plucking a leaf, pouring water, lifting a cup, carry significance when performed with care. Through tea, we touch both nature and tradition, sensing the continuity of human attention and the enduring rhythm of the land. Tea, then, is more than drink. It is a meditation, a bridge, and a mirror. It reflects the quiet diligence of ancient cultivators, the subtle artistry of preparation, and the deep harmony between humans and environment. Each infusion carries story, effort, and presence, a reminder that life unfolds slowly and that wisdom often emerges from the patient observation of small details. It teaches us to move deliberately, to notice gently, and to cherish the delicate balance of effort and rest. In closing, the story of tea in ancient China is a story of connection between leaf and hand, human and landscape, present and past. It is a story of slow attention, of care extended over centuries, and of the quiet artistry that emerges from mindfulness. To drink tea is to participate in this enduring dialogue, to honor the subtle work of nature and humanity alike. It is a gentle practice of reflection, continuity, and presence, and a reminder that the simplest things, approached with care, can carry profound meaning. And so, as the steam curls softly above a cup of tea, we are invited to pause, to breathe, and to consider the slow, enduring rhythms that shape our world. Tea is a teacher, a companion, and a quiet witness to the human journey. It offers flavor, warmth, and reflection, and it reminds us that patience, attentiveness, and care are the soft, enduring forces that connect past, present, and future. In this quiet contemplation, we discover that tea is more than a drink. It is a way of being, a rhythm of life, and a legacy of gentle attentiveness that continues to unfold, sip by sip, across centuries. Here's a reminder of the last portion of section 10 from your previous script, which we will continue from. And so, as the steam curls softly above a cup of tea, we are invited to pause, to breathe, and to consider the slow, enduring rhythms that shape our world. Tea is a teacher, a companion, and a quiet witness to the human journey. It offers flavor, warmth, and reflection, and it reminds us that patience, attentiveness, and care are the soft, enduring forces that connect past, present, and future. In this quiet contemplation, we discover that tea is more than a drink. It is a way of being, a rhythm of life, and a legacy of gentle attentiveness that continues to unfold, sip by sip, across centuries. Beyond the quiet hills and terraces where tea first flourished, its influence began to ripple outward. carried by people moving slowly through valleys, mountains, and rivers. Traders, scholars, and wandering monks carried leaves, knowledge, and practice along the winding paths of early China. Each journey, though modest in scale, became a conduit for observation and reflection. Tea moved with a quiet deliberateness, not as a commodity, but as an offering of attention, culture, and mindful presence. In the early river valleys, small boats drifted along soft currents, their timbers creaking gently in rhythm with the water. Tea leaves were stored carefully in woven baskets or clay jars, protected from moisture, sunlight, and jostling. Travelers on these journeys observed the interplay of the hills and the river, noting how mist settled differently in each bend, how sunlight filtered through clouds to touch the water. In this environment, the leaves were more than sustenance. They became companions to observation. Each infusion offered warmth during long hours on the boat, and each sip reminded the traveler to move slowly, notice carefully, and connect with both landscape and community. Monks traveling from temple to temple carried tea as a silent companion for meditation and teaching. Their paths often led through misted valleys, over rocky passes, and along forested trails where the smell of damp earth mingled with pine and moss. Tea became part of a daily ritual on these journeys. Water drawn from clear streams, leaves infused over small embers, aroma rising in gentle curls that invited reflection. The ritual was subtle, yet profound. It reinforced the principles of mindfulness and patience, offering both clarity of mind and calm of body. The monks' journeys became vessels for the quiet spread of tea culture, linking distant regions through practice rather than force. The travelers' observations informed new approaches to preparation. Along mountain trails, they noticed differences in leaves grown at various altitudes, in the mineral content of streams, and in the subtle aroma of mist-laden air. Some leaves, steeped in cooler mountain water, yielded a lighter, sweeter infusion. Others, prepared near riverbanks under warm sunlight, produced a richer, fuller flavor. These insights traveled alongside the leaves, carried in memory and conversation. The slow spread of tea was therefore not just botanical, but intellectual. Every cup consumed in a distant valley preserved lessons learned from the land of origin. Small communities along trade routes began to adopt these practices. Villagers learned to recognize quality by aroma, leaf texture, and infusion color. Methods of drying, rolling, and storage were shared in hushed conversation, passed from neighbor to neighbor, from one household to the next. Knowledge moved gently, organically, growing like the tea leaves themselves, rooted in observation, nourished by attention, and refined through practice. Communities became stewards of both plant and method, sustaining the subtle lineage of tea without the need for proclamation. The spread of tea also carried subtle philosophical influence. The act of brewing in distant valleys mirrored practices observed in faraway mountains. Boiling water slowly, arranging leaves with care, pouring with deliberate patience. These actions created a shared rhythm, connecting people through quiet attentiveness. Even across miles, a cup of tea became a bridge between minds, an invitation to mindfulness, and a reflection of continuity. In this way, tea fostered a culture of reflection that was simultaneously local and expansive, deeply rooted in place yet extending gently across regions. Education and reflection traveled alongside tea. Scholars carrying leaves often paused at riversides or mountain groves to brew small infusions, recording observations about flavor, aroma, and preparation techniques. The resulting insights, later shared with students or fellow travelers, formed an informal network of knowledge. Over time, certain regions became renowned not only for leaves, but for the methods and philosophies associated with their preparation. Yunnan's misty hills, Fujian's humid slopes, and the Middle Yangtze's terraces all contributed to a growing understanding of tea as both plant and practice, a living repository of human attentiveness and environmental observation. Even the humble act of gifting tea became a medium for the quiet transmission of ideas. A traveler might offer a small bundle of leaves to a host, and in doing so, communicate care, respect, and subtle instruction. The exchange was never hurried or loud. It was an act of deliberate presence. Each cup prepared from these gifted leaves carried stories of the land, techniques observed along the way, and the reflection of the hands that had nurtured them. Tea, in this manner, was both object and message, a way to share not only flavor, but the culture of careful observation, patience, and mindful attention. The gentle spread of knowledge through tea was also a teacher of humility. Travelers learned that techniques perfected in one region did not always translate perfectly to another. Water, soil, altitude, and climate altered flavor and required adaptation. Observers were compelled to refine methods through experimentation, noticing subtle differences and adjusting accordingly. This ongoing process emphasized attentiveness, adaptability, and respect for nature's influence. Each cup became a lesson, each journey a reflection on the slow, iterative dialogue between plant, environment, and human care. Over decades and centuries, these quiet exchanges accumulated into the early cultural fabric of tea. Communities that once observed, harvested, and brewed independently began to share insights and subtle distinctions. Regional styles emerged, not through decree, but through careful observation and the slow circulation of practice. Tea became both a unifier and a marker of local identity, a delicate balance between continuity and adaptation, between shared method and individual refinement. Even in moments of solitude, tea guided thought. Travelers pausing on a high ridge, gazing at misted valleys below, or monks sitting in shaded groves, would infuse leaves slowly, inhaling aroma, observing color, and savoring taste. Each sip encouraged reflection, a quiet dialogue with the land and with the accumulated knowledge carried along the journey. Tea nurtured patience, taught subtle perception, and offered a framework for understanding both environment and self. The interplay of observation, travel, and cultivation also emphasized human cooperation with nature. Leaves grown in one region reflected its soil, climate, and moisture. The techniques developed to harvest, dry, and infuse them respected these natural conditions. Travelers who carried leaves to distant regions learned to adapt methods without overriding the plant's inherent qualities. Tea became a lesson in careful adaptation, a recognition that human ingenuity is most profound when it works in harmony with the slow rhythms of the earth. Over time, this gentle spread of knowledge created networks of attention and practice. Communities, monks, scholars, and travelers contributed to a living archive of observation. Each cup, whether shared in a home, prepared at a riverside, or sipped alone on a mountain, held echoes of distant slopes, previous harvests, and careful preparation. Tea became a medium through which knowledge, reflection, and human connection flowed slowly, deliberately, and profoundly. In this context, tea transcended simple utility. It became a quiet medium for education, culture, and philosophy. It fostered networks of attentive observation, facilitated the exchange of subtle knowledge, and cultivated patience, humility, and mindfulness. Even without formal schools or institutions, tea carried practice and wisdom from valley to hill, from generation to generation, linking people through flavor, aroma, and the gentle act of preparation. The story of tea's gentle spread reminds us that human knowledge often grows in subtle ways. Observation, practice, and careful transmission create continuity over time. Tea, as it traveled, taught not by force, but by quiet example, through careful attention, reflective practice, and the sharing of insight embedded in every leaf. Each cup became a vessel of culture, environment, and deliberate thought, connecting humans to each other and to the slow rhythms of the world. Tea's journey beyond its birthplace is therefore a story of quiet influence, patience, and reflection. It shows how a simple leaf, handled with care, can carry knowledge across miles, generations, and landscapes. It illustrates the gentle accumulation of skill and observation, the cultivation of attentiveness, and the subtle ways in which humans learn from nature. Every sip, every shared cup, every carefully observed technique became part of this ongoing dialogue, a continuation of the legacy that began in misty hills centuries ago. The leaves, traveling slowly, whispered stories of mountains and rivers, of harvesters and monks, of careful preparation and patient observation. Tea taught humans that knowledge is often transmitted not in grand proclamations, but in quiet gestures, repeated practice, and attentive care. It offered warmth, reflection, and clarity, becoming a living bridge between people, place, and time. As tea spread gently through villages, valleys, and mountains, it began to shape not only practice, but thought. Its influence moved beyond cultivation, brewing, and ritual, and entered the quieter domains of reflection, philosophy, and daily life. Each cup became an invitation to slow perception, a meditation on the rhythm of nature, and a subtle teacher of human presence. In this way, tea was more than sustenance. It was an accompaniment to awareness. Consider a scholar seated in a quiet courtyard, early morning light filtering softly through the latticed windows. A pot of water simmers, leaves waiting patiently in a small vessel. The scholar's hands move deliberately, arranging leaves, pouring water, observing aroma and color. The act of preparation is slow, yet purposeful. Each gesture encourages attention to subtlety, the curve of a leaf, the clarity of water, the faint curl of rising steam. This moment is quiet, but rich. Tea becomes both stimulus and companion, guiding thought without demand, shaping reflection in gentle, deliberate ways. In the mountains, monks prepared tea beside flowing streams or beneath trees cloaked in mist. Water drawn from the earth mingled with the tender leaves, releasing aroma that mingled with the scent of moss, soil, and pine. Here, tea was inseparable from contemplation. Each sip required patience, each infusion a careful measure of time and temperature. Tea was a tool for mindfulness, a bridge between body and mind, and a quiet guide for sustained meditation. The rhythm of brewing mirrored the rhythms of nature. Rising mist, shifting sunlight, flowing water, and the slow unfolding of leaves. Tea also invited reflection on the passage of time. Leaves plucked in the morning, dried under sun or embers, rolled gently, then steeped in warm water, mirrored the patient cycles of life and growth. Drinkers observed not only the physical qualities of the infusion, color, aroma, texture, but the process that led to it. Each cup was a condensed meditation on effort, attention, and the passage of hours and days. Tea reminded humans that value arises slowly, through patient care and quiet observation. The philosophical dimension of tea extended to moral and social reflection. Preparing and offering tea encouraged attentiveness, generosity, and humility. Serving a guest was more than hospitality. It was a reflection of care and deliberate presence. Observing the qualities of leaves, adjusting heat and steeping time, and attending to aroma and clarity required patience and restraint. In this, tea cultivated virtues that extended beyond the cup. Drinkers learned subtlety, attentiveness, and mindfulness, not just in craft, but in human interaction. In daily life, tea became a companion to labor, study, and reflection. Farmers plucked leaves during quiet mornings, pausing to sip brewed tea before continuing their work. Artisans, after hours of precise and careful labor, found in tea a moment of calm. Scholars used tea to sustain attention while reading, writing, or recording observations. Tea's gentle stimulation encouraged clarity without rush. It fostered a slow attentiveness that aligned body and mind, connecting humans with both work and contemplation. The preparation of tea itself became a reflective practice. Heat was monitored carefully, leaves measured and arranged deliberately, water poured with awareness. Rolling, drying, and infusion became gestures of patience, rhythm, and attentiveness. Each movement was an extension of thought, a physical meditation that mirrored mental reflection. Observing aroma, color, and subtle flavor variations encouraged quiet curiosity and discernment. Tea cultivated sensitivity to the world, teaching that richness is often found in subtlety rather than abundance. Over time, tea influenced aesthetic sensibilities. The clarity of a bowl, the gentle curl of steam, the color of an infusion, all became objects of attention and appreciation. Early drinkers noticed variations between regions, seasons, and harvests. Learning to perceive nuance and refinement, the teacup, simple in form, became a locus of reflection. Tea shaped perception, encouraging subtle observation and the ability to discern delicate differences, not only in flavor, but in life, environment, and experience. Tea also became a medium for philosophical dialogue. Scholars, hermits, and monks shared leaves during quiet gatherings, exchanging observations about cultivation, preparation, and the effects of infusion on mind and body. Conversations unfolded slowly, guided by reflection and attentiveness. Tea framed discourse not in haste or argument, but in contemplation and shared observation. In this manner, the leaf became a subtle teacher of thought, a medium through which reflection and human connection coexisted. In rural homes, tea framed the rhythm of daily life. Morning infusion marked the beginning of labor. Afternoon tea punctuated work with pause and observation. Evening sips provided reflection and closure. Through this daily integration, tea shaped habits of attentiveness, patience, and care. Its presence was quiet, pervasive, and formative. Over time, it became a rhythm, linking environment, human effort, and reflection into a continuous practice of mindful living. Even solitary moments with tea carried significance. A single cup, brewed with care beside a window, on a terrace overlooking misted hills, invited reflection on the broader rhythms of life. Observing the leaf unfurl, inhaling its aroma, and tasting its warmth encouraged slow, deliberate perception. Tea reminded the drinker of their connection to environment, process, and the accumulated knowledge of generations. It offered continuity, clarity, and a gentle framework for thought. Tea's influence was subtle yet enduring. It fostered reflection on human effort, patience, and observation. It shaped social practice, teaching attentiveness, respect, and care. It guided philosophical inquiry, encouraging quiet exploration of mind and environment. It nurtured daily rhythms, providing comfort, warmth, and reflection in both labor and leisure. In every cup, tea carried centuries of observation, care, and presence. Moreover, tea shaped an early appreciation for impermanence. Each infusion was transient. The aroma dissipated, color shifted, flavor faded. Yet each moment of engagement with tea was complete, fully present, and sufficient. The ephemeral nature of the cup mirrored the slow, careful cultivation of the plant and the cycles of the seasons. Tea invited humans to recognize the beauty of fleeting experience, the quiet joy in attentiveness, and the rhythm of impermanence that underlies life. The philosophy embedded in tea extended naturally to society. Communities that grew, prepared, and shared tea cultivated attentiveness, cooperation, and subtle discernment. Generosity, patience, and respect became integrated into daily life. Tea framed not only flavor and ritual, but moral and philosophical development. Through its slow presence, it encouraged humans to notice, reflect, and engage with care. Lessons that extended beyond the cup into life itself. Thus, tea became an enduring medium of reflection and philosophy, linking body, mind, and environment. Each step, cultivation, preparation, brewing, sipping, invited mindfulness, patience, and quiet curiosity. Through these practices, humans learned to inhabit the present, observe with care, and appreciate subtlety. Tea, in its gentle presence, offered guidance that was as practical as it was philosophical, shaping both daily life and inner contemplation in ways that would echo across centuries. Even in the simplest household, in the quiet valley, or on a distant mountain path, tea shaped human thought. Its influence was pervasive yet subtle, guiding reflection, fostering patience, and nurturing attention. Tea was a teacher of process, perception, and presence. Each infusion, each shared cup, carried lessons in attentiveness, humility, and quiet observation, an enduring philosophy embedded in everyday practice. Through tea, humans came to recognize the profound value of small, deliberate actions, of careful observation, and of subtle attentiveness. In its aroma, warmth, and flavor lay a quiet education in reflection, culture, and philosophy. Tea became both sustenance and guide, a companion to daily life and to contemplation alike, encouraging humans to move slowly, observe deeply, and find richness in the gentle rhythms of presence. As centuries passed, tea evolved from a regional curiosity into a cultural touchstone. Its influence stretched beyond the hills, rivers, and valleys where it had first grown, moving into the hearts and minds of communities across China. The gentle practices surrounding cultivation, preparation, and reflection became traditions, deliberate yet quiet, sustained by attention rather than decree. These traditions endured because they were simple, thoughtful, and profoundly human. In the soft light of morning across the terraces of Yunnan, the quiet rustle of leaves continues. Farmers move deliberately along the slopes, their hands brushing tender shoots, selecting only those ready for harvest. Steam rises from small vessels, the aroma of fresh infusion mingling with the scent of misted soil. the rhythm of care, the plucking, the drying, the rolling, is the same as it was centuries ago, unchanged in essence, yet subtly enriched by generations of accumulated knowledge. Each gesture carries continuity, linking the present with countless hands and minds that have tended the leaves before. The act of brewing, too, remains a meditation. Water is drawn carefully, heated slowly, and poured with attention. Leaves unfurl with gentle grace, releasing aroma and warmth. Observers notice the color of the infusion, inhale its fragrance, and sip deliberately, allowing subtle flavors to unfold across the palate. Even in this simple moment, the drinker is connected to centuries of careful practice, to the rhythms of nature, and to the quiet reflection embedded in every step of preparation. Tea becomes a bridge across time, linking the observer to both the land and those who nurtured it before. Tea's enduring legacy is evident in its role as a quiet teacher. It has always demanded patience, attentiveness, and presence. Every stage, growth, harvest, preparation, and consumption, encourages observation, careful action, and subtle discernment. These qualities extend naturally beyond the cup, shaping perception, thought, and behavior. Communities, individuals, and travelers alike learn that richness arises not from haste, but from the deliberate cultivation of skill, sensitivity, and awareness. Tea teaches, gently and persistently, that every moment can be attended to with care. Even trade routes, once the channels for transporting leaves and knowledge, contributed to the continuity of tradition. Merchants carried not only tea, but the stories, methods, and observations of distant regions. Leaves from Sichuan, Fujian, or the Yangtze valleys retained the character of their origins, while the knowledge accompanying them, techniques for drying, rolling, and brewing, spread organically. The flow of tea became a subtle network of cultural continuity, connecting communities through shared practice and the quiet exchange of observation. Tea also retains its role as a medium of reflection. In the solitude of a courtyard, the quiet of a temple, or the stillness of a misty valley, tea provides a framework for mindfulness. Each step, the selection of leaves, the pouring of water, the rising aroma, and the first sip, is a practice in presence. Time slows, perception deepens, and the mind is invited to observe without rush. Tea fosters continuity not only of tradition, but of inner life, shaping the way humans approach thought, observation, and reflection. Across generations, the cultural practices surrounding tea have continued to evolve subtly, reflecting local conditions, individual creativity, and accumulated experience. New techniques in processing, new ways of brewing, and new aesthetic preferences have emerged, yet all retain the core principles of attentiveness, patience, and respect for nature. The essence of tea, its quiet invitation to observation and reflection, remains unchanged, a testament to its enduring simplicity and depth. Tea's legacy is also evident in human relationships. Sharing a cup is still an act of attentiveness, care, and connection. The gesture conveys respect, hospitality, and quiet understanding. In households, temples, and public gatherings alike, tea continues to structure social interaction, fostering patience, mindfulness, and subtle connection. Each cup carries not only flavor, but centuries of accumulated human attention and shared experience. Even in the smallest gestures, pouring water, rolling leaves, inhaling aroma, tea conveys philosophy. It embodies principles of continuity, respect, and cooperation with the natural world. Humans learn through practice to align effort with environment, to act with presence and care, and to appreciate the subtle unfolding of time. Tea is both object and teacher, a simple plant that conveys complex lessons through attention, repetition, and reflection. In modern valleys and mountain slopes, traditions endure. Farmers observe soil, light, and moisture with the same careful attention as their ancestors. Communities gather to share leaves, celebrate the first flush, and pass knowledge to younger generations. Scholars and monks continue to use tea as a companion to study and meditation. Travelers sip leaves along river paths, carrying both flavor and cultural memory. The quiet rhythm established centuries ago persists, linking past, present, and future in a gentle continuity. Perhaps most quietly, tea reminds us that tradition is not static. It is lived. Each cup, each careful gesture, each observation in the field or courtyard continues the dialogue between humans and nature. Practices evolve, but their foundation, attention, patience, and mindful care, remains. Tea teaches that culture endures through repeated, deliberate action, and that even the smallest acts can carry meaning across time. The legacy of tea is therefore both tangible and intangible. Leaves, vessels, terraces, and brewing implements form one aspect. The knowledge, attentiveness, and rhythms of practice form another. Together, they create a living tradition that nurtures reflection, patience, and subtle appreciation. Every sip connects the drinker to landscape, history, and generations of human care. Tea embodies the quiet continuity of life and culture, an enduring reminder of what can be achieved through slow, deliberate attention. And so, as the steam rises softly from a freshly brewed cup, we are invited to breathe, to notice, and to reflect. We glimpse the centuries of care and observation embedded in each leaf, the slow accumulation of practice, and the enduring rhythm of human and environmental collaboration. Tea is more than beverage, more than ritual, more than tradition. It is a quiet companion, a gentle teacher, and a living legacy unfolding slowly, sip by sip, across generations. Through this enduring presence, tea continues to shape life, thought, and culture. It teaches that richness is found in patience, that connection is cultivated through care, and that attention to subtlety reveals depth. The story of tea, begun in misted mountains and quiet valleys, continues to this day, reminding us that even the simplest gestures, plucking a leaf, pouring water, lifting a cup, can carry profound meaning. Tea's legacy endures quietly, softly, persistently. It flows through time, linking the present to the distant past, the hand to the leaf, the mind to the rhythms of nature. In every cup, we find continuity, reflection, and gentle guidance, a meditation on life itself, carried in the steam, aroma, and warmth of a humble leaf. Tea teaches us that care, patience, and attentive presence are the soft, enduring forces that shape culture, experience, and human life.